morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, good morning. Love is our religion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Baby. I'm so grateful, I'm so honored to be here with all of you today. It's really wonderful to see you all. So I'm here to share with you what I'm learning about the undefended heart. And I've been learning a lot about the undefended heart lately. So a lot to share. So imagine this. It's the morning before school. Myself, Jamie, and our son William, we're in the kitchen. 6:30 in the morning, we've got the chant music going, we've got the incense burning, Jamie's making breakfast. And I come in and I have this story I want to tell them. So I start telling this story, and I'm really excited about telling them this story. I'm very enthusiastic. I'm talking with my hands. I'm talking louder and louder and faster, and then he gets into the story, and he's chiming in, and he's talking over me, and I'm talking over him. And in a moment, I stop, and I look at him, and I'm rolling my eyes, and he stops, and he goes, "Love, what's wrong?" I said, "Well, you're interrupting my story." And he looks at me and he says, "I know, you're calling it interrupting, but remember, we used to call it finishing each other's sentences." To which I replied, "Touché." Because it's true. When we met each other, I had met someone who saw me completely, I saw him. We finished each other's sentences. And cut to 15 years of marriage later, I'm rolling my eyes, calling it interrupting. This is what I want to talk to you about, the undefended heart. Perhaps you have had this experience in your life where you find yourself pushing away the very thing that you're really longing for. And as Rumi says, our task isn't to seek after love, but to turn within and release any of the barriers that we have built up against that love. It becomes a process of letting go of all of the armor, of all of the layers of protection. So the first way is to ask yourself, what is it that you might not like or want someone else perhaps to know about you? So when I first met Jamie, he used to say about me that I was the most loving person he'd ever met. And so coming in this morning, leading off with a story about how I'm rolling my eyes at my husband doesn't exactly put me in the light of the most loving person he's ever met before. And to think of myself as a practitioner in my kitchen rolling my eyes at my husband in front of our child is not what I would typically want to lead off with, right? Most of us have something that we don't exactly want to start the conversation with about ourselves. Like if I asked maybe one of my mom clients, "What don't you want me to know about you?" Perhaps she would say something like, "I don't want you to know that I yell at my child." Or "I don't want you to know that I'm impatient with my children more often than I would care to share." Perhaps I would ask one of my other clients, a male client maybe, "What don't you want me to know about you?" And he might say, "I feel inadequate, that I'm an inadequate financial provider for my family." Or I ask a woman client, what don't you want me to know about you? She might say, "I don't want you to know that I feel desperate to have a child," or "I feel that I'm less than if I'm not in a relationship." We all have these different thoughts that we carry that sometimes we want to put in the back pocket or on the back burner. And then we feel like we need to lead with something different. So sometimes we put on a mask in front of us and say, it's all good, and we lead with this particular mask rather than allowing ourselves to let go of the armor and the barriers and as I call it, walk around spiritually naked so that I am transparent. And what I lead with is what I am inside, so that my insides and my outsides match, right? So if there's something in your life, I want you to take this journey with me. I don't want to be the only one exposing myself this morning. So if there's something in your life that perhaps you grapple with, perhaps you don't necessarily, if I offered you the floor up here and gave you the microphone, you might not want to stand up here in front of all of us and share this about yourself. I'd love for you to be courageous and call that into your heart right now. And let's work with it for a moment. So does anyone not have a way that they sometimes defend their heart? Just raise your hand, because I'm going to offer you a few of mine. If you don't have something to work with, I want us to leave having practiced this morning. So everybody have a little, it can be something as simple as rolling our eyes. Because in that moment, we were having a wonderful morning, and it was so subtle. I simply rolled my eyes, and he felt this distance. So it doesn't have to be something grand. So whatever it is for you, let's just gently close our eyes. And if it feels right for you, you can even place your hand on your heart as a way of connecting with yourself. And all we're doing is we're calling forward a way that we are aware that we sometimes push others away, push love away, and most of all, push ourselves away. And as we simply call that forward into our own heart, simply be willing to have an energy of compassion for this place within you. So the place inside of me that rolled my eyes, I'm saying something, and I want you to say your own version of, oh, I'm so sorry you felt the need to push something away. I'm so sorry you felt the need to retreat. I'm so sorry you felt the need to have a barrier, an armor, protection. It's okay. It happens. I'm right here. You can just let that go. We create a safety inside of ourselves to say to ourselves, it's okay to let that barrier go. It's okay to release that barrier. And then simply, in your own way, create an inner smile to the place inside of you that sometimes pushes others away. Just an inner smile, as if a child has fallen and scraped their knee, and you want to just wrap your arms around that child and give them a big hug. The place inside of you that sometimes gets defensive, we're going to give that place a big hug full of compassion. It's okay, it happens. And as you feel yourself just relaxing, whenever you feel ready, you gently open your eyes. So we're going to take this place and we're going to work with it for the rest of this morning. So as you gently open your eyes, I want you to become aware that the antidote to defensiveness is compassion. The medicine for any barrier, any armor, any protection, any way that I think I need to push someone away, the antidote, the message, the medicine is compassion. And so we're here to cultivate an inner dialogue of self-compassion. We're learning to self-soothe so that we don't need to soothe with numbing out or shopping, right? Or having a glass of wine, too many, right? We're here to learn to self-soothe with the voice of compassion inside of ourselves. So as we continue this morning, I'm inviting us to find your own voice. Each of us has a very unique voice of compassion. And it usually sounds or feels something like when you think of an innocent child, the way that you would run up and hug that child if they were in distress. You can often think of a child and then apply it to your own self. I find in working with my clients that often something so simple as taking the time to be kind to ourselves. First of all, it's so enriching, it's so healing, and it's instantaneous. When we take the time to hug a child who's in distress, instantly that child will melt into our arms. Is that your experience? That's definitely my experience. So I sometimes use this golden cord, I'll call it, as a metaphor for our consciousness. So this is how I see us. We are golden, right? We're golden. We're this golden, flowing energy of love. And sometimes, out of the blue, when you're having a great morning and you've been singing happy on the way to service, sometimes something will happen and you may roll your eyes at another driver on your way. There you are, you're singing happy, and you're rolling your eyes at another driver. That's what I call a knot in consciousness. This free-flowing, beautiful, loving energy now has a little knot in it. And then you might say to yourself, I can't believe it. I'm on my way to service. I'm rolling my eyes at another driver, and you're judging yourself. And then you have a knot upon a knot. And then you get to service and you're like, well, I can't show anybody that I was just, flipping off a driver on my way to come to a spiritual center, so I'm going to present a different picture. So then you got a knot on top of a knot on top of a knot. And somewhere deep, deep, deep in there is our original essence, our authentic essence, the one that truly we want to show up with, right? When we apply this voice of compassion to ourselves, the knots start to untangle. This is how we untangle a knot. Oh, honey, it's okay. Something as simple as, oh, honey, it's okay, allows one of these knots to untangle, right? Now, why do we even feel the need to wear a mask? Why do we even feel the need to put up that barrier in the first place? Well, I have a theory on that. After working with so many of us for so long, if I asked you to finish this phrase for me, I'm wondering if you all would, what would come to your mind? Original. Again, original. One more time. Original. Interesting, isn't it? I say one word, original, and sin is somewhere in this ethers. Now, you may not believe in original sin. You may not believe yourself to be original sin, and yet I'm only suggesting that the phrase is in the cultural ethers. We've all heard of the phrase original sin, and I simply say original blank, and sin comes to mind. So it's in the cultural ethers, whether we individually take that on or not, it's in the ethers. What I'm here to invite us, and if you leave with nothing else today besides the voice of compassion, if you would be willing to explore this in your own life, I'm willing to actively practice knowing myself not to be original sin, but to be original innocence. So again, think of an infant. Any infant that you may have had the privilege of being near when they're born, many of you are parents in this room, when we have the privilege of meeting an infant, I don't think that any one of us has ever looked at that child and thought, original sin. We all think of the innocence of a child. And not only that, it is simply looking at an infant that evokes that place of innocence within us. Because we can't see something outside of ourselves that isn't within us, correct? I can't give you a $100 bill if I don't have a $100 bill to give you. I can't see the innocence in someone if I don't have the innocence inside of myself to be seeing it with. So this is a very important, very, very important practice. I believe it to be one of the least valued, undervalued, overlooked practices that we can embark upon in our own personal, individual lives. Because I might not imagine myself or think myself to be original sin, but I am here to tell you unequivocally that the only reason I would hide something from you is if I thought somehow I was flawed, I was less than, I felt inadequate, I felt not enough, I felt unworthy, I felt undeserving. If I'm feeling or thinking myself to be less than, or if I'm comparing myself to someone else and I'm coming up short, or I'm feeling inadequate or thinking myself to be not enough in some way, shape, or form, my tendency is going to be to hide that from you. I'm not going to walk into a party usually and say, "Hi, I'm feeling really inadequate this evening. How are you?" "Hi, I was feeling really less than this morning and I pushed my husband away. How are you today?" It's just not something that we lead with. We think that we need to push it away. And so what I'm here to say to you is that when we know ourselves to be original innocence, still we are here to learn. Still we are here to grow. Still I may roll my eyes at my husband in the morning. But the difference here is if I know myself to be pure and innocent and holy and whole and complete and perfect, that is who I am. And sometimes I'm learning on my journey, and that's okay. Because I'm learning doesn't make me less than, doesn't make me flawed. Because I've stumbled doesn't make me flawed, correct? Because a child inevitably stumbles when they're learning to walk, we understand they're not flawed, they're learning. When my son was probably less than 6, we were falling asleep one night. I was lying in bed with him when he was falling asleep, and I was apologizing to him for some way that I had been harsh with him that day. He had, I can't remember what it was, but he had done something. He was learning, and he had done something, and I was really impatient with him that day. And so that evening, I was apologizing to him. And so I was, in my own way, trying to give him permission at 6 not to take on what my, impatience. And I was seeking to free him of that. And he said, right before he was falling asleep, he put his hands on his heart, and he said, "It's okay, self, you're just learning." And I always remember that. It's okay, self, you're just learning. So in a moment when you may push someone away, roll your eyes at someone unintentionally, and you can say to yourself, "It's okay, self, you're just learning." It allows us to be innocent and whole and perfect and complete and human and learning. We want to have both rather than either or. And if I'm thinking at the deepest level of my being that in some way I'm flawed, I will in some way seek to unconsciously cover up that flaw. And if I am courageous enough to know myself to be innocent and pure and someone who's learning, then I'm okay to be vulnerable and transparent and say to you that sometimes I don't act as the most loving person that my husband's ever met in his entire life. So this is a practice that I am asking us to take deeply into your own life, into your own home, into your own meditation practice, into your practice with your children, into your practice with your siblings or your spouses or your co-workers, to be willing to engage in this depth and level of conversation with them and say, you know, what I'm learning about myself is. Does this sound like something that would be enriching on your journey? Yes. So then let us together, I'm going to say an affirmation, and then if you feel like this is enriching to you, then you're going to repeat it after me. So, I know that compassion is the key. I know that compassion is the key. I know that self-compassion is my highest spiritual practice. I know that self-compassion is my highest spiritual practice. I practice compassion with myself and others. I practice compassion with myself and others. I am willing to know myself to be original innocence. I am willing to know myself to be original innocence. Please say that again with your hand on your heart. I am willing to know myself to be original innocence. Let's all say that together. I am willing to know myself to be original innocence. I am here to shine. I am here to shine. One more time together. I am here to shine. Shine on, baby. Thank you.